Hello, hello, salon professionals and practitioners, and welcome back to the Savvy Salon Summit, where we're empowering the beauty business to new heights. I'm Suzanne L. Anderson of Be Salon Savvy, and I am here with Jay Williams of Jay Williams Company. And we're so happy to have this live opportunity for some Q&A. So if you have some questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll get to them just as soon as we can. But please remember that there's a little bit of a delay. So please be patient. But Jay, thank you so much for being here and welcome back to the Savvy Salon Summit.
Glad to be here. I had my almond milk espresso, so I am wired. I'm ready to go.
That's the trick. That's the secret sauce, huh?
Yeah. Almond milk espresso, yes.
I'll have to try that. So just in case somebody is watching this on the replay and they didn't see our pre-recorded interview, I want to give you an opportunity to share what your offer is for the All Access Pass attendees.
My offer is to change their life. How's that? Too big an offer?
Oh my goodness, that's a great way to present it. Well played, well played.
Okay. All right. We'll go a little smaller with that. So the offer, if you're listening, is that you can get the e-version of either one of my books, Leave Your Mark or This versus That. There's an audio of Leave Your Mark as well that will be available to you for only $7.99, and the normal price is $12.99 on that. We had to leave a little money in it because 100% of the profits go towards stopping human trafficking. And so that's why we put just a little bit in there. But the idea was to give you something that you could access, that you could reference, and instantly would allow you to leave your mark on the world.
Yeah. I love that the audio version is free, comes with the purchase of the book at its discounted rate, because that works really well for me. I like to listen to audio on my drive and while I'm working out. So that's a nice gift. Thank you so much for offering that. We have so much to share. Like after our interview before, there are so many other things hanging out there that I'm super curious to hear what your perspective is on them. So if you don't mind me asking asking you a couple of questions. So one of them is that you touched on trust, about how the relationship building and how there is this level of trust. Let's talk a little bit more about that, because what kind of trust do you mean? I think there might be some confusion out there of what do you mean the client and trust?
Yeah, so let me, in case you didn't listen to the original interview, just to bring everybody on the same definition, is that we define trust as being a combination of two things: character and confidence. Character being made up of your intent, why you do something, and integrity. Do you do what you say you're going to do? And then confidence being capabilities. Can you do it? And then results. Have you done it? And so this is the currency in which our relationships are based on, how much we trust each other. And so you look at your role in the salon, and there is this trust that needs to exist between you and your client. And you need to understand, will it be given to me or will I have to earn it? And one's not right or wrong. It's just understanding that it could be offered two different ways. Now, in our industry, we actually measure trust, and it's via our retention rate. And so if you're listening and you go, well, that's interesting. Well, how would we measure this trust thing? Look at your retention rate. And if you have 62% retention, then 62% of your clients trust you enough to rebook with you. The question you want to ask yourself is, what do I need to do to increase the trust with the other 38%? Understanding you won't get all of them. And where you look with those clients, is it around my character or is it around my confidence? Now, one of the things that we talked about is that trust varies from task to task. They may not trust you to be on time. They may not trust you to do color. They may trust you to cut their hair. They may trust you to do extensions. And so it's important that you understand that it's going to vary from task to task, not whether they trust you or they don't. And it's the same thing if you're an employee and you have someone that you report into, is that they may look at you and their trust level with you as a practitioner could be different than their trust level with you as a team member, might be different with their trust level with you socially versus with business. And so that was the idea, is that you realize that this is the foundation, the currency of relationships, and that you want to understand this and you want to measure it.
Got it. That's great. I love that clarifying of that, the different categories of that totally makes sense. There are certain places in your business where you might be stronger than others, and recognizing those and working on that could benefit you hugely. Something else that I made a note of, because not everybody may not understand what an empath is and what that means exactly. So I wanted to hear your definition of an empath.
So it's interesting you say it, people may not understand what it is. It's interesting because this industry attracts empaths. My experience has been, it's been pretty close to 100%. So I believe a margin of error of about 6%. I do meet stylists that, listen, I don't want to know anyone's personal life. I don't want to connect. I just want to do a haircut and for them to get in and out. It doesn't make them wrong, by the way. It's just that their passion may be around the creativity, not the human interaction. That being said, the beauty industry generally attracts empaths. Empath is, they could be caregivers. So it could be childcare. It could be somebody who's a nurse, maybe a doctor. They generally tend to be these empaths. Empaths are people who take on the energy and the thinking of other people. And so I'm not an empath. I can be sympathetic. I'm usually not empathetic. I can learn the behaviors, but I don't take on the energy and thinking. And so those of you who are listening, I think, oh my God, that's me. So if your client shares with you, they're having a struggle financially, or you know what, their kids are maybe going through a rough time as it relates to drugs, or financially, they're not meeting their obligations, you take on that energy. And by the end of the day, you're like, oh my God, I need a glass of wine. I need a shower to wash this off. You're probably an empath. It's a great thing, by the way. It's a phenomenal thing. It's a gift. The opportunity is to realize that it can go on a spectrum. And so it works for you. It's what draws people to you. It's the same thing that can work against you if you don't understand how to regulate this gift you have of empathy.
Right. I can see where there's a happy medium in there somewhere. What I think about is with doctors, especially, I guess, ER doctors maybe, but how people will say, well, his bedside manner is awful. And my response to that a lot of time is, they're usually the best doctors. And if you want them to continue in their business or in their practice, they have to be that way to continue on. Otherwise, they take all of that stuff on, and then you have burnout and overwhelm and all of those things. And so, not that our job as a practitioner is the same as like an ER doctor, but I do use that as an example because it's the same. If you don't have certain tools in your toolbox to be able to deal with those things that come up in the salon that your client shares, and you take all of that on, you can see how that can lead to complete overwhelm and burnout. And I think it's so important that we talk about that now, because right now, as things are opening up and people are coming back to the salon and visiting, it's more than ever that people are going to share what has happened. A lot of people have had a lot of things happen in their lives that are not positive over the last year. I was just talking with a student the other day, and that was her exact words were that I saw 6 clients today, and all 6 of them, that's what happened. And 6 clients for her is not that many, really, but each one of them was so emotionally exhausting that she was just done at the end of the day. So, can we talk about some of the things that you would recommend for finding that balance?
Yeah, it's a very real, it's really, it's a real dynamic now if you're back in the workforce, because for those of you who are listening, I think you can relate to it. So whether you're doing it for yourself or you work for someone or you're an owner and you're listening, here's the number one thing is how do you not let what's going on for you personally affect you professionally?
Yeah.
So let me just let that sink in a little bit for you, because the reality is that there's some things that haven't changed, like your rent, your mortgage, your car payment, like if you go down the line there. And so we still need to achieve those things. And the reality is that we're emotionally have been challenged like we've never been challenged before. So we're making health decisions and we're making financial decisions, we're making freedom decisions, and it's all simultaneously. Yet, the mission is still the same. And the mission is at some level, and Dr. Lou said it best, is that we cosmetically and psychologically transform people. And so, you use the case as a doctor, he still has his mission to save life and to make people better. And yes, he or she may have something going on in their personal life, but the people are coming to them to be saved. And in the salon, I think you need to realize is that you're saving people. You're not selling them on anything at this point. You're not selling them an upgrade, a highlight, but you're saving them. You're saving them for what's going on in their life, and whether it's a distressed relationship with their husband, wife, kid, what they're managing at work. Do I go back? I don't want to go back. They're asking me to go back. Financially, we've fallen behind. This is what they're coming to the salon for. And so for you, how do you show up in a way where you're emotionally ready and present? So there's something that happens in the beginning, which is simply clearing your mind. And it's about emotional intelligence. And we talk a little bit about this earlier. And I have a workshop, The Emotionally Intelligent Hairdresser, because this is the number one skill going forward is emotional intelligence. And that's just simply your ability to identify and understand an emotion in yourself and others, and adjust your behavior accordingly. So identifying it for yourself, hey, I'm coming to work, and you know what, I'm really, really stressed. I understand it's because of money, and going, you know what, well, here's how I can make more money today. I can just be so damn personable. Everybody loves me, and they pay me for the experience, not the haircut. And so I say it kind of tongue in cheek. However, this is the way that the brain works, is that you have these internal conversations of identifying, understanding, adjusting your behavior. And so you show up empty. And if you're listening, that's how you start. You can't show up with something in your cup already, because if there's something in there and you begin to put more in, it's going to overflow. And so you need to be prepared for that, anticipate that there is going to be this overflow. So one, empty your mind. And I'm not saying that it doesn't exist or to ignore it. I'm just saying to identify it and understand it. If you can identify it, studies have shown you're 80% more likely to do something about it. So just identify before you start your day where you're at. The second thing is now you've come in and you've done that. And if you've been successful with clearing your mind and starting your day, you're going to see your client come in. And there's a propensity for them to share negative news. By the way, the reason you do that is that your brain stores negative and positive information, two different parts of the brain. And the part with negative information takes up more space. So now you have your client coming in, right? They hate their job, they hate their life, they hate their dog, they hate country music, they hate their faith, right? You guys can relate to this, and they come in. Someone with a high emotional intelligence, and these are the people that are going to be able to navigate through this, can identify this person leans towards being negative. I need to redirect the conversation. How you redirect conversations is through asking questions. So the transition there is that the brain can't help but answer a question that it's asked. So if you're listening now to this and I ask you how long you've been cutting hair, where you cut hair, what's your favorite shampoo, and I just went down the line, your brain's instantly answering all these things. It does that. It's a beautiful thing, unless it's uniquely trained, like FBI, CIA, Navy SEAL, something like that. But that's not most of the population. So understanding that when that person comes in who's negative, you just simply say, hey, you know what, Jay, I haven't seen you in a month. What's the best thing that's happened to you since I've seen you last? The question allows you to redirect. It sends the brain to a positive experience, and they share it with you. Now, some of you are listening and you're going, oh my God, Jay, in theory, that's awesome. I have a client though, right? That no matter what you say, they always find the negative, right?
And I'm sure you're using this question because you've gotten that question when you've done your classes, right? This is a direct example.
It's a direct example because it's real. You're going to have people, and again, negative information stored a separate place and takes up more space. And so you say, what's the best thing? They go, oh my God, you know what? I don't know if anything good has happened to me. You know, my feet are killing me, right? My allergies, they find anything. You still go back to the way that the brain works. Ask it a question, redirect the conversation. And so I would say to them, it sounds like you've been juggling a lot of different things. What is the one thing that's gotten you through? And I've done this, and you have to be intentional. People with a high emotional intelligence, they can identify, they understand, and they adjust the behavior because they realize I can't take on this negative energy. This is one of the person you mentioned that now has 6. I'm an empath. By the way, you're an empath. You take on the energy, your client feels great when they leave because they've gotten all this off their chest, right?
Yes, right. They're better.
Yeah. Now that's one. Now you have 6 more. But how do you empty your cup again?
Right.
So it's important that you hang in there and you ask them what's the one thing. And if they can't think of it, you got to go listen. I've heard great responses. So, for some people, it's been their faith. For some people, they've started reading. Some people, it's Peloton. Some people, it's a Chardonnay. You may need to prompt it, but this is how people are navigating the emotional portion of their job.
Wow. This is why I love talking with you so much because the science behind it that you share too. I mean, those are great examples. And if you're watching or listening, write those questions down because they're perfect examples of how to steer that conversation the other way. But never in my training of all the years that I've had a practice and I really dove into education, I didn't ever have a course where we really talked about the scientific part of it, of how the brain works and things like that. Super interesting. I didn't know that about the negative space. So please feel free to share any more information about the science behind it. Like, I get what you're saying, the positive and negative thing. It's almost like we're not capable of multitasking. Your brain can't be in operation on both of those things at the same time. So I guess I'm just digging for like, what other little tidbits do you have that the scientific part of it, of how our brain works when we're communicating with people?
Well, the most recent studies, by the way, validate that we can't multitask. You will do one thing over the other, and you'll do one thing better than the other. So I think that's an important message for anybody who's listening. And so if you're trying to multitask during your day, realize that something will suffer inherently. The science part of it, I want to encourage you, if you are listening, is that there will be a combination of the cosmetology, the study of hair, skin, and nails, and psychology, the study of human behavior. So I want to differentiate between therapy and psychology. I am not a therapist. It's a unique skill set that I do not have, nor am I a psychologist. And so I want to caution you is that there's a lot of, back and forth that, hey, we're psychologists, we're not. because you can listen and give advice does not make you a therapist or a psychologist. That is not what I'm recommending. What I'm sharing with you is the way that human beings operate and their brain works. And there is a science to what we do. And I want to encourage you guys as you're listening is that if you're looking to get to the next level, whatever that is for you, I'm not saying compared to anyone, but just for yourself, is that there will be a balance of these two sciences. And my experience has been is that we have checked every box for technical education. If you want color education, balayage, extensions, cutting, styling, all of that is out there.
It's out there, yeah.
The opportunity is to understand that's a combination of the two. You can have an A haircut and an F experience, and you're a C plus. What I will tell you is it doesn't flip the same way. You could have an F haircut and an A experience. It translates much higher. I'm not saying not to be good technically. I just wanted you to double down on some of these non-technical skills and not take them lightly. Studies show your emotional intelligence accounts for 58% of your success. So over half of your success will come from your non-technical skills. So there's an informal study done, and they asked clients why they leave salons. 8 out of 10 leave for non-technical reasons, not because of the color or the style. You alluded to doctors, where there's commonalities. I was speaking to a group in New Orleans, and there are doctors in the group. They said, this is why we lose people. Rarely do we lose people because of technical things. Like there's a malpractice suit. That's it. I'm not talking about that.
Yeah.
That's the exception. More often than not, when people leave them, 8 out of 10 people are leaving them because of this quote unquote poor bedside manner. So I want you guys, as you're listening, if you're looking to get to that next level of retention or rebooking, referrals, reviews, relationships, recommendations, whatever you measure, trust, that you need, it's not an option, to incorporate this psychology, the science of the human beings and how they operate. Your technical skills will only get you so far.
Right. I totally agree. It makes me think of an experience that I had as a practitioner, that I got ill, had tonsillitis type thing, and it turned into laryngitis. I had full-blown laryngitis for 2 weeks, like absolutely no voice whatsoever, which some people would have said might say that was a gift, but
I've heard that about me. Go ahead.
But I was off work until I felt good enough to go back to work, and at the time I felt like not having a voice, I could make it work, wasn't a good enough excuse to continue canceling appointments. So I tried it. I went to work and tried to do hair and consultations and with paper, or like I could barely whisper even. It was really interesting. It did teach me something in life about how don't take your voice for granted. Be careful what you say and put out into the world. Like I had a whole new appreciation for having a voice. So I feel like that's the reason why I went through it. But man, it really was impossible to try to do my job without a voice. I mean, we could get through like the consultation part of it, but to be sitting there, I'm standing, there's no communication at all. And I could feel their energy of like, this is not an enjoyable salon experience at all. So I just, forgive me for sharing, but it just made me remember of like, it contributes so much to what their salon experience is. And like you said, what their trust factor on whether they come back and what an important piece of the whole experience it really is. So
I think it's a great example actually that you gave, because if you're listening, I think you have to ask yourself if it's going to be a combination of technical and non-technical, for lack of better terms, is where am I on a scale of 1 to 10 as it relates to my technical skills? And then you have to ask, where am I as it relates to 1 to 10 on my non-technical skills, my ability to connect with people? And those are two different scores. And what if you are technically an 8-9? However, on your non-technical, your engagement, your connection with people, your emotional intelligence, you're a 5. That's a great aha. Now you have the answer if you want to get better on where you need to spend your time. And, you know, it's an extreme example of what you have, but what if you took the conversation out of the appointment?
Try it.
Well, sometimes your conversation is so bad, it would have been better if you just took it out, right? Because you're doing a lot of the talking, you're not listening, those things. So yeah, I think it was a highly relevant example. And I think for people to raise their game, those are the questions you need to ask yourself. If you don't mind me saying, you know, what we're talking about questions is that I talked about a question, your brain can't help but answer it. It works for you as well. And I think right now, especially after the last 14 months, people question a lot of things. You have to ask yourself, one, do I want to cut hair? You have to ask yourself. And you may not like the answer. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't ask it. And the reality is you may not like doing it. So let's go down that path. You need to make a decision. So you and I were talking prior to, and I had a product company. I had 2 partners, and we've been in business for 7 years. And my partners, I thoroughly enjoy. I rethought everything during COVID, right? I think like everyone did. I thought, this is not what I want to do. I couldn't get passionate about it. And it wasn't fair. It wasn't fair to my partners. It wasn't fair to, you know, the team that we had there. And so it was a difficult decision because I did enjoy the team. I did enjoy my partners. I still do. We're friends. But that was a decision I had to make. And it drove me down one path. For you, if the answer to your question is, I do enjoy being a stylist, the next question is how good am I at it? And on a scale of 1 to 10, break it down between technical and non-technical. And then the next question to ask yourself is, where could I be? Because you might be a 6-7 on the technical, and you could be an 8-9. On the non-technical, you could be a 5-6, and you really could be, you know, a 7-8. I think these are questions that you need to ask yourself to get you the answers you need to do whatever's next for you. So whether it's jumping a level, jumping prices, whatever the case may be, this is the self-awareness that you need to have. And this is the self-accountability that you need to have if you're going to be either an individual contributor or you're on a team.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me get on that pedestal.
No, yeah. Well, I love the 1 to 10 scale, the ratio, and doing that self-assessment. And it was great that you ended the sentence with team, because that's where I was going to go with that is, what if somebody isn't very good about rating themselves? I mean, it would be a hard thing to ask some team member or salon coworker or manager to rate them for them. Like, do you ever have that question or advice on, do you think people rate themselves truthfully?
So this is a great conversation. I love it because it's going to deviate a little bit from what we've been talking about. So I work inside the industry and outside the industry. And the reason I share that with you is because what ails you in the industry ails humanity. So feel good about, hey, you're having the challenges everyone else is having. One of the top 3 topics I talk about is feedback. And this is what you just alluded to, is how do I get feedback? Feedback is, if you're listening, just bear with me. Feedback is a perspective other than your own. Are you tracking with me?
Yep.
Feedback is information and data to help you make a better product, service, or experience. Are you still tracking with me?
Yep. Yeah.
That's all good. There's no such thing as bad feedback. And I write about it in the book. People say, well, criticism. And then they made it better. They go, oh, it's constructive criticism. That doesn't make it better for anybody. It doesn't. I want to shift your thinking about this feedback. And if I can, you'll do it early and often. and it'll give you a perspective other than your own. And you get feedback by asking questions and seeking others' perspective. So it is important what you think about how you're doing. Sometimes you could be your harshest critic. What adds value to your thinking is when you can include the perspective of other people. Which other people? Whoever's a stakeholder in that experience. So if it's your peers and they're there, I would ask them, where would you say I am as it relates to being a team player?
Mhm.
Where would you say it relates to, like with my interpersonal skills with my clients? Ask your clients, solicit feedback. That's what the consultation is. It's asking questions, it's listening, it's gathering feedback, it's sharing feedback. Yeah, get in this habit. Feedback's asking questions, getting additional perspective. Ask your owner, manager, leader, I want some feedback from you. What would you share with me? And when you ask for feedback, be very specific. So ask about your cutting, ask about your coloring skills, ask about your styling skills, ask how you are as a team player, ask how you are with your punctuality, ask how you are as it relates to the dress code, how are you as far as it relates to the values of the salon. Be very specific when you ask for feedback. It'll allow you to brace for that punch if you're going to get it, and it'll give you the very information that you want. So if you're talking, you fix dinner for your spouse, if you're listening, or for the kids, don't go, hey, how was it? Go, hey, how was the taste for that? How was the presentation for that? Yeah, what would you want to see differently about dinner? So I love that you said that, because you do need a perspective other than your own if what you're doing involves other people. Who do you get it from? Anyone who else is involved in what you are doing. Now,
Right.
I want to talk about what you said is what if there's a gap in the perception. So you say to me, Jay, how do you think you are as a presenter? And this is role playing. Nobody think I'm arrogant or anything. I go, oh, I'm a 10. And if we stop there, I only have my perspective, right? And if you're someone else trying to help me, you'd say, well, Jay, what do you think my perspective is? Again, ask a question. The brain goes to answer it. Didn't think about it before. I'm like, well, the mere fact that you're asking, I'm going to guess it's not a 10. And now that I think about it, I probably cut you off a few times and didn't, I don't know, maybe about 7, 8. You can see through asking questions and introducing the question about another perspective, how it can get that person to be a little bit more self-aware and expand their thinking. So if you were a leader or an influencer in any way, or you have kids or family, ask them what their perception is of what they're doing, and then ask them, well, what do you think my perception is of that situation or activity?
Yeah, those are good skills. Those are good tools. Again, I love the 1 to 10 and rating yourself. And so I'm going to circle back a little bit to about the emptying your cup, because I do see in the industry that that's probably one of the hardest things that people struggle with is, the saying of like, leave it at the door. So somebody rates themselves pretty low on that, or somebody else's perception, that's the feedback that they received. Do you have any tips on how do you do that? How do you keep it separate and leave it at the door when you show up for work?
The first step is to just take a heat check, so to speak. And before you walk in the door every day, is to understand where you're at, to identify and understand. So if you go, hey, I'm not feeling my best, is to understand what's contributing. So if I can share with you last week, and some people listening may know this individual, but someone who, plays in the same space I did, unexpectedly passed away last week. And so very heavy, because they're a very generous and kind person, certainly extended that to me. Well, right after finding this out, I had to do something that was an 1.5-hour live interview. And so I identified, it wasn't my regular, I didn't have my almond milk espresso, right? I didn't have that burst of energy. and understood that it was because I lost someone that I held in high regard. And so adjusting my behavior, the person asked me how I was doing, and I said, with your permission, I don't want to burden you, but can I just share something because I got to get it out before we move on. So I asked permission, gave them placement, what I was going to do. And they said, I'm just coming off a call where I just found out. And that person just had an incredible amount of compassion, but my identifying and understanding it and adjusting my behavior allowed me to empty my cup and be full and present for that work I needed to do. And so it was just about awareness. This emotional intelligence I talk about starts with self-awareness. It's not about changing somebody else. It's not about changing other people. It's about changing you. And it starts with your thinking. And so it's imperative before you go into a conversation you get with a client is that you understand where your emotions are and potentially how that could impact the people that you're going to encounter. So ask yourself that question, and it may result in you coming to the salon and your heart's heavy. You know, we're going through a lot now where we may have taken in other family members, or prior to what was going on, a family member was helping us out with our kids, and now we don't have that. And now we're stressed about our schedule and we need it to be flexible, right? All this is going on in your mind. I don't know that you can turn it off. You just need to find a way to empty the cup. I couldn't turn off what was going on for that person I knew, but I found a way to empty my cup to get it out. And so for you, if you're coming to work and you're feeling that, you know, you're heavy that way, find that friend, find your owner, manager, and just say, hey, can I just get 30 seconds? Just give me a hug. Hopefully it'll be okay for you guys to do that.
Hopefully.
Get your body loaded with that oxytocin, serotonin. Again, that's the science of what we do. And then get on your way. By the way, if you guys aren't familiar with oxytocin, oxytocin is a chemical that's released in your body when you touch someone. And so when we talk about emotional intelligence and being in the salon, one of the things that's affected what we've done in the last 14 months is we were one of 6 professions that was legal to touch someone. So when we hug them, we put our hand on their shoulder, we massage their scalp, there's a chemical that's released in the body called oxytocin. So if you're listening, and you may know this fact already, when a mother breastfeeds a child, this is the chemical that's released into the child. And the reason that they push for this so strongly when I was doing the research is that the oxytocin, the higher the level of oxytocin in a human being, the higher the level of trust with the human being that triggered the oxytocin. So you understand the mother-child connection. So they actually did a study. It's a horrible study. It wasn't intentional, but in Russia, they had more children in the orphanages than they had nurses. And so they just had a scenario that they could observe and take data. And there was a reduction in the maturity, both emotionally and physically, of children who were not touched. So in our space, that is acceptable. I work outside the industry. There's no touching going on. But if you know this about yourself and you can go and you can get a hug and that helps you. And by the way, it could take 5 seconds, 15 seconds. People with a high emotional intelligence, they realize this and they still accomplish the mission and the goal. And so this is why I want for you guys to pique your curiosity about this emotional intelligence. It touches everything and everyone that you interact with on a day-to-day basis. And again, 58% of your success will come from your ability to understand this emotional intelligence.
Yeah, 58%. I'm making a note, as you can probably tell.
Over half. Yeah, so if you're listening and you own a salon or you plan out your education, here's what I want your takeaway to be, that over half of my education has to be non-technical. I'm not minimizing by any means technical education. That is not what I am articulating. I believe that that's been addressed already. I just want you to make sure that you have the correct mix of ingredients to maximize your potential. Let me just share this with you. I got a little heated there, sorry, it just popped into my mind. Is that emotional intelligence is not about changing your personality. Please, please know that.
Yeah.
This is about maximizing your personality. So if you're an introvert or you're an extrovert or you're a combination, you're an ambivert, this is not about changing you. This is about maximizing your potential. You could be the bull in the china shop, not changing that. Emotional intelligence will help you not to break anything. That's what we're going after.
I love that analogy. That's a good one. I have one last question. This one is a pretty powerful question. It has a lot to do with why I am here doing the summit anyway. And so I'm kind of doing a little bit of a poll of all of our speakers, because I feel like it's so important for us to find out what you think, what you would like to see different in the industry. We're all passionate about what we do. We're all here to help people. And so I find that a lot of times there's something that you don't even realize you're keeping it quiet, that I wish this would be different in the industry. And then once we voice it and it's out there, then we find that other people feel the same way. And maybe we can pull together and work on that for the greater good. So that being said, what is one thing with our industry that you would like to see come about, improve, change? What you feel in the end?
Do you have another question for
me? Do I have anything else?
Yes. How would you solve world hunger? Here's what I would say. And for some people, you're going to be extremely disappointed. You're going, wow, this is the best you have. I wish in the industry there was a dress code.
Oh.
I think if people dressed up, there was a minimum level, and listen, there's got to be some functionality to the fashion. So it's not stilettos, but it could be a heel, it's a thicker sole. If the gentleman wore a shirt and tie and a vest, and the women dressed up in a tasteful way, that there's something that psychologically happens to us, I believe, when we dress a certain way. I certainly feel different. I went to a wedding this weekend and I was in a suit and shirt, and I certainly felt different at the beginning of the day when I was in shorts and a t-shirt. And I believe that, well, studies show that we form our impressions of people within 7 to 17 seconds. That's pretty damn quick.
It's pretty short.
We haven't even gotten a chance to talk to people.
Yeah.
76% of that impression is visual.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about fashion, if you're talking about aesthetics, if you're talking about something that's an exterior facing feature, people listen to people who have what they want. It's the way we work. We don't listen to people who don't have what we want. And so if there was one thing that there became this minimum standard of a dress code that was elevated, I think, I know instantly from a client's perception, think about it. If you just walked into a salon that someone's wearing leggings and a tunic or whatever version of it, and the guys have on a shirt buttoned down all the way, torn jeans, you know, whatever it is, and you walked into a salon where the guys were in a shirt and a tie and a vest and cropped real well, and the women were dressed equally as well. Me just describing it,
yeah,
you would have a feel. So I'm not saying it's going to be exactly what I just laid out to you, and it'd be your definition of, but we begin that way of dressing. I think it would shift our thinking and certainly shift the perspective of the client and go a long way to elevating the craft, which is ultimately the goal, I think, for anybody who's participating in education, is to contribute to that.
Yes.
So it sounds very superficial, I realize that, but hopefully I'll just be the best superficial answer that anyone's given.
Well, I do love the answer. I support that 100%. It's the thing that I talk about a lot as well, is, you know, how you show up and how you present yourself. And we teach people how to treat us on how we treat ourselves even. And that just, it all goes into how we want to present ourselves. So I think it's a great answer, Jay. Thank you so much for sharing.
Good.
Yes, I like it. So, okay. So again, such good information. I wish we had more time to cover more, but then that would take away the need for you to take advantage of the all access pass offer that Jay is given us so generously with the book and then also the free audio. And the $7.99 goes to, tell me again the name of the organization.
It goes to Stopping Human Trafficking. So there's 3 that we contribute to on a monthly basis. There is one, the beauty industry, called justiceandsoul.org. And so if you guys want to check that out on your own, it's words don't capture what they're doing, but salon owner out of Seattle has done something special over the last 8 years, including building a school and a salon in Cambodia. And stylists go over and donate their time. That's who teaches. And it could be a week, it could be a month, a year at a time. So it's really, I think, for an industry like ours, who is predominantly women, not to make light of the contribution of men, helping an atrocity that takes advantage of primarily women and children, and certainly some men. And then we're doing something in the beauty industry. So it feels like this perfect alignment of who we are and who we want to help. So that's where it's going, justiceandsoul.org.
Yes. If you need, you should learn more about that. Make sure you visit that website. There's a lot of great information there. And if you are in a position to get involved, please do. So thank you, Jay, so much for being here. I've really enjoyed this. So we'll see you guys at the top of the hour for the next interview. But for now, I'm Suzanne L. Anderson of Be Salon Savvy, here with Jay Williams at the Savvy Salon Summit, where we're empowering the beauty business to new heights. See you soon.
Thank you, guys.